Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Newsroom. I'm your host, Khalid. But today is Monday, the 4th of December 2023. The last month of the year is upon us, but we've got lots to discuss with you before the year wraps up. Our first story, ladies and gentlemen, today concerns COP28. Our caretaker Prime Minister Environmentalist, along with the delegation, was there. He met many important leaders on the sidelines, and also was the part of not only the operationalization of the loss and damage fund, but also other important funds. Pakistan's contribution to the COPs has been instrumental, important, as was this time as well. And of course, credit goes to the caretaker Prime Minister Environmentalist, as well as the team behind him. This is going to be our first story. COP28, Pakistan's successes and what has yet been achieved under COP28. What is the requirement for COP28? What needs to be done for the developing countries by the developed countries? Our second story concerns the latest as far as the Israel-Palestine war is concerned. As far as the casualties go, around 16,000 casualties is the numbers, the figure that we have. But this is the official figure. We don't even know what the unofficial figures are like. Israel has restarted its bombardment and has restarted its violent campaign in different parts of Palestine, including Gaza, including the West Bank. And of course, despite the different diplomatic efforts that are being made, for the moment there seems to be no thaw in the violent outbreak that came after the couple of days truce that happened between both the sides. What is the outcome now of this new episode of barbarities? Will the genocide continue? Is there an end game? Is there an end point to this current conflict? Will the important countries that are trying to make an effort be able to have some kind of success in these efforts? This is going to be our second story. Then we are going to talk about a school in Azad, Jammu and Kashmir that has won the Zayed Sustainability Prize at COP28. Another story with COP28, but we thought it's better to kind of separate it from our main story. The UAE president gave away the award to 2 Pakistani students, and of course this school has won laurels for sustainable farming. And of course there are so many other projects that Pakistan is undergoing. Our youth is extremely vibrant in this context, and this is just one of the examples for which this school in AJK was applauded. Our second story concerns Pakistan Stock Exchange that has begun the week, let's say, with a bang, pun intended. The KSE 100 has crossed a psychological barrier of 62,000 points, never seen before in Pakistan's history. Also, the index is up 801.8 points, closed at 62,493 points. And finally, we will be talking about Indonesia, where there has been an eruption of a volcano, as a result of which 11 hikers have been proclaimed dead. 12 others are also missing after the Mount Merapi volcano erupted. The ash from this Mount Merapi was as high as 3,000 meters, which is of course the norm, but nevertheless it is a tragedy as far as the number of casualties is concerned. This is going to be our last story, ladies and gentlemen. Let's begin with our first, and that concerns COP28, what has yet been achieved, what needs to be achieved. How important is COP28 for the future of mankind, for the future of humanity as far as the environment is concerned? Because as we see, the temperatures keep on increasing. The 1.5 degree estimate that had been put is no longer a reality. The new reality is 2.5 to 3 degrees Celsius. To highlight more on this, we've been joined by Dr. Ejaz Ahmed. He's an environmentalist and a regular guest on our show. Dr. Saab, thank you very much to have joined us. Dr. Saab, the COP28 took place, it is still taking place, but of course, for Pakistan, it took place in the backdrop of the devastating floods that grappled Pakistan last year.
Yes.
In the wake of all the other events that Pakistan is facing because of environmental pollution, because of environmental degradation, because of climate change. Yet Pakistan is not being helped the way it needs to be. How important was our caretaker Prime Minister Environmentalist Saab's visit, the operationalization of the loss and damage fund and the other funds that he also put into place?
Well, I think it was very important COP because there has been a lot of discussion so far. This is 28th COP. We still in so many years, almost 3 decades now, we were unable to come up with certain solutions, with certain possible options. So this loss and damage fund, which was the crucial fund, and there was a lot of discussion related to it for last many years, and there was hardly any recognition by the developed world, which they are responsible for all the disasters and all the bad things which are happening to the environment at the moment. So this recognition has basically resulted in developing some sort of mechanism for loss and damage fund. And I think last COP, there was hardly any recognition about this, and it was put on the agenda at last minute. So now this has been actually, there has been pledges now. US pledged, I think, $3 billion US dollar. The amount of money which has been pledged,
is it enough? Is
no,
the money that has been pledged enough?
That's what I wanted to actually say. The amount of money that has been pledged, number one, only pledged, it has not been given to the body, to the
But you remember COP27, all the pledges that were made. How much of those pledges were actually, translated into the funds going into 2 different countries, including Pakistan?
Yes. So the amount of pledges are not enough, number one. Number two, if we just assess, there are different studies, estimates that we need 300 billion to 600 billion US dollars in order to cope with the situation by 2030. And the current situation is that we hardly have 10 billion or maybe a few more. And only in Pakistan, there were two disasters, 2010 floods and last year's flood. In the 2010 floods, we had losses of 43 billion US dollars. And during this last year's, it was, I think, 30 billion. So only in Pakistan, 2 events, they resulted in that kind of devastation. So that fund is not enough, but at least there is a recognition. I think it is important, and it happened only because now in North America, in US, as well as in other neighboring countries, and in Europe, they have started facing the disasters of climate change. Last year, the weather was so hot in Europe that they realized that, okay, this is happening. Similarly, US never recognized climate change as one of the area of concern, has also recognized because of the cyclones they face, the floods that they face. So there is a recognition. So we are hoping that it will, be supported more and more in coming years.
How linked or interlinked is global economy and environment in your point of view? I'd like to refer to what Britain's King Charles III said. He said the global economy will be in peril until the environment was rapidly repaired. Is the world listening? Is the world really wanting to do something? It's so easy to pledge, it's so easy to talk, it's so easy to make declarations, but to transform them into actual action is the key word. How important is that determination from the important countries to do that?
It is, very difficult, but I think first step has taken, in a sense, realization is there now. And as far as economy, the link of environment and economy is concerned, I think there is no other area, unless we link it with the economy, we are not going to take any action. Be it the food security, be it the water, be it energy. So I think everything is basically related to the environment. If we talk about the food security, the change in the weather condition, if does not allow crops to get mature at a proper time or to sow at proper time. I remember during this year there were rains at the time when wheat sowing was going on. So they hardly could manage to sow wheat, which is the staple food of like almost all of Pakistan. So if we get that kind of climate scenario where farmers are unable to grow their crops, so you can imagine how it will be related to economy, food security, the livelihood of the people. And I'm just talking about one aspect related to agriculture and related to food. But then there are many other, if we talk about energy, alternate energy, if we talk about water, they are again, I mean, like they're a massive link with the economy and the survival of a human being.
Another thing that is related to economy is the debt crisis that a lot of developing countries are facing because of them bearing the brunt of climate change. Will the global north understand the plight of the global south, especially those countries that are under the debt crisis, and do the needful?
It will take time. But I think we need to push because this is our concern, it's not their concern. So we need to, develop that kind of linkage also, that how it is affecting our economy, how it is affecting our livelihood, how it is affecting our food security. Unless we come up with certain research, we come up with certain data, they are not going to recognize this. And I think the Secretary General played very important role when he visited last year, when he visited the flood affectees and flood affected areas. He was convinced totally, and he in his all of his speeches he would actually give example of disasters in Pakistan. So I think this is the way to convince those who are at the helm of the affair at global scenario, to make them understand and make them realize that this is a disaster that is happening. This is not only in Pakistan but also in other countries. They are facing the same problems.
Of course, and one day even those important countries in the global north that have not been paying enough attention will bear the brunt of it all. I would like to, you talked about Antonio Guterres, I would like to refer to what he said as far as the G20 nations is concerned. He said they have the power to reset a climate crisis that has been spinning out of control.
Right.
Is there an immediate desire by the G20 countries to do something? Because we no longer can think of long-term solutions. We have to first, tackle it short-term and then go for the long-term solutions. But are those short-term solutions in place?
Not really, but I think again, their recognition is first thing. I think once it is recognized, and they only recognize not because the problem is we are facing the problem in South, but because now they are suffering themselves. It is the problem has actually come to their home. So now they have started taking steps. They have started taking it seriously. Just Trump was hardly convinced that climate change. He was thinking that this is a joke. But now the change in the government, but also the disaster at their home has resulted in convincing them that this is a reality, and they need to work on it seriously. And ultimately, environment is a common resource for everyone. So if something happens in Pakistan, ultimately neighboring countries will also suffer from the disaster. Not to that extent, but just example of cyclones. So cyclone starts from
wildfires, cyclones, tornadoes. I mean,
they just start from somewhere else and then affect some other area. So that is how this whole environmental scenario works.
Green Pakistan initiative, Living Indus initiative. How important are these initiatives?
They are very, very important. I think this is one of the I think this, I should say the change mechanism or agent of change actually. The Indus program, similarly Recharge Pakistan program, they are focusing on water. Water conservation, water resource management, and water is one of the key area which is being affected by climate change. Be it cyclones, be it flood, everything is related to water. Be it glacier related, the floods. So we need to see that over a period of time, Pakistan has actually reached to the stage where we are almost suffering from water deficiency. We are deficient in water. Per capita water requirement is decreasing.
There was a report on drought in 2025 in Pakistan as well.
And even now, I mean, like if we see in Balochistan, in certain areas, people are facing, there is hardly any rain during November. So the situation is very dangerous and concerned, but I think these initiatives will ultimately help in recharging the aquifer. Another I think a wonderful initiative is related to the tsunami plantation, which actually is again a game changer, because this is something which will help in sequestering carbon and also increasing the vegetation, which basically will result in better watershed management, better water retention, and this will again be a wonderful initiative. As you know that this decarbonizing agreement has been agreed today, or I think it was yesterday, in the COP. So this project, the tsunami plantation, will help in achieving some of the targets for that initiative.
Also, I'd like to understand, Dr. Saab, how important is the link between health and climate change, between the different diseases that erupt in the world and environmental pollution and effects of climate change?
Well, I think we already know the instances and the cases of malaria has increased, dengue has increased, and they are again they are very much related to the climate related issues. So the frequency and the number of patients has increased tremendously. Even in Islamabad, we have started, getting malarial patients. So it is again very important. There are many aspects which are related to economy. So if you again talk about health, it is very much related to economy, because people suffering from any disease will not be able to work.
Agreed.
And ultimately there will be burden on the society, on the family, and also will not be able to contribute positively in the economy of Pakistan.
Now, the joint statement by the COP presidency and multilateral development banks has highlighted the need for an inclusive climate finance network. This has been co-signed by the African Development Bank, Asian Development Bank, Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, Council of Europe Development Bank, and European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, and other banks as well. How important is that also? How important is the need for an inclusive climate finance network in this day and age?
I think one of the important area that we need is financial resources. We talk about the food security, whether we talk about anything related to climate, alternate energy, renewable energy. Such mechanism should provide either grants to the countries, not become the burden like IMF we are facing, like that burden. So if we have, even if the loans are given, they should be soft loans in a sense that the countries who are suffering should be able to actually tolerate it or to consume it in such a way that they are positively contributing to the economy of the country which is suffering from the climate change issues. It should not be a burden on a country that there is a disaster and then environmental disaster and then a financial disaster in the form of these loans and in the interest, heavy interest. So I think these mechanisms are required. That is why we have been talking about loss and damage fund. That's why adaptation fund is there. Green climate fund is also being developed, and all these funds are providing grants. Pakistan received grant about 6-7 months ago in the form of this Recharge Pakistan program. Similarly, there have been discussion on GLOF and other related issues. So the grant form is a better support to any country instead of having such loans which become the burden on a country.
Coal emission, CO2 emission is also something that is extremely important to curtail in order to prevent the
Yes.
effects of climate change. I'd like to refer to what our caretaker Minister for Health, Dr. Nadeem Jan, said on the sidelines of COP28. He said that all participants of COP28 need to accelerate clean energy and transformation efforts.
Right.
Do you feel the desire is there? Because of course, you know, the transformation efforts are very important, but they need to be implemented. Again, Pakistan is doing the needful, but a lot of countries in the global north aren't.
Yes.
How can we pressurize them to do so?
Oh, well, I think there is again understanding to decarbonize, and that's why the agreement has been actually discussed and approved to some extent. 125 countries have already signed that agreement. So it is very important to work to make the renewable energy more available, so that people will go into transition and then ultimately convert this coal based or the sources which are not environmental friendly. So ultimately it is going to happen. Otherwise, if we continue those practices related to coal power or you know, like other sources of energy which is more environmental which results in more environmental degradation, ultimately it is not going to help the global community. So it seems there will be a pressure on those countries which are already, you know, like involved in environmental unfriendly practices. And Pakistan has already, as part of their NDC, they have committed that the energy sources, 50% of the energy sources will be renewable energy by 2030.
Okay.
So and 15% of that will be voluntary, and then 35 will be based on the support provided by the international community.
Finally, Dr. Saab, I'd like to understand in a short form as an answer. Firstly, global stocktake, the report that all the countries have been working upon for 2025. And then secondly, the Paris Agreement. What kind of future do these two have, and how interlinked are they for a better world, a more environment friendly world?
In Paris Agreement, many countries, they actually committed that they are going to reduce the targets to some extent, and that commitment was there. And now this was the deadline was 2030. This is almost in the middle of you know, like 2023 is almost in the middle of you know, like 15 years. So I think now there is a time that we, the global community, should see what is actually happening on in the ground. If Pakistan committed certain thing, so then it is important to take the stock and see whether they have started working on it, what kind of achievement they have made. If not achieved anything, then what are the reasons, and how can international community will help that particular country. So we are doing quite well from that point of view. But I think it is very important to to take the stock and then understand where is the gap and why these gaps are there. This is going to make them realize also that if we have committed, so we should actually, you know, work on it, because this is a commitment to the global community and to humanity.
All right, thank you so very much, Dr. Ejaz Ahmed Saab, to have joined us, to have talked to us about COP28, environmental pollution, climate change, the desire by certain countries to do the needful, but also the pressure that needs to be imposed on other countries, so that there is a global consensus as far as action to be taken in order to curtail the effects of climate change that are upon us. We are seeing the increase in the global temperatures. We are seeing the different effects of you know, the climate change that are changing the patterns across the different countries in the world, in the global north and the south. Let's hope by 12th of December, when the COP finally ends, there is a joint resolution, there is a need for action rather than just words and statements. Thank you very much, Dr. Ejaz, to have joined us. Let's come to our second segment, ladies and gentlemen, that concerns Israel and Palestine, and of course this almost 60-day war that has been continuing. Now that the truce has ended, both the sides, especially from the Israel side, have resorted again to violence. Israeli military has widened its ground offensive in southern Gaza, as Palestinian officials now say that more than 800 people have been killed since Saturday. Israeli forces have arrested more Palestinians in overnight and early morning raids across the occupied West Bank. At least 15,500, I would put the number at 16,000, have been killed in Gaza since the 7th of October. In Israel, the official death toll still stands at around 1,200. Maleeha Lodhi, former ambassador to the United Nations, joins us online. Maleeha Lodhi Sahaba, thank you very much to have joined us. Ma'am, the humanitarian truce that was in place for a couple of days has now ended, and Israel resorts back to its violent tactics that it was going on for the couple of weeks before the truce began. Is there an end in sight?
Well, for the moment, it doesn't appear so, because Israel has expanded its ground operation. It has stepped up its raids into the West Bank, and it's carrying out vicious, cruel bombardment and forcing Palestinians who were initially asked to go to the south. Now they're being asked to, just stay there until Israel has bombed everything into the ground. So we're looking at a very, very serious and dangerous situation where I'm told that the hospitals in Gaza are now flooded with dead bodies. The people in Gaza have nowhere to go while they confront this bombardment by a very cruel occupation force.
Ma'am, I'd like to also understand, when you talk about humanitarian aid and all the NGOs that were in place, a lot of those humanitarian organizations say that they had provided the GPS coordinates to the Israelis so that they are not targeted. But in fact, the opposite happened. They were targeted. Many of them lost their lives. Many of them got injured. Then Gaza's health ministry accuses Israel of intentionally striking hospitals to shut them down, creating a circle of death for the wounded and displaced Palestinians. Is it not a war crime? Is it not a humanitarian crisis that needs to be adhered to at the earliest? Why is the world not doing the needful?
Well, of course, what Israel is doing is ethnic cleansing. Israel has long been guilty of war crimes, and every minute of the day now, it commits another war crime. So there's no question about that. But I think if we look around the international community, clearly the world has failed the people of Palestine. I think the Muslim countries have failed to do anything to stop this terrible situation in Gaza. All we've heard from Arab and Muslim countries are denunciations, statements, words, but we've not seen any actions that could help to at least mount the kind of diplomatic pressure that is needed on the United States, because the United States is the only country that Israel listens to. But the U.S. remains adamant in its blind support of Israel. It has not lifted a finger, really, to try to end this terrible war. So we're looking at really a catastrophe of monumental proportions, and I think the consequences of this will reverberate in the Middle East and in the entire world for years and perhaps even decades to come.
I totally agree with you on that. Kindly stay online with us. We've also been joined by Nader Alturk. He is the Palestinian Chargé d'Affaires in Islamabad. Brother Nader, thank you very much to have joined us. Brother Nader, when you look at the statistics, more than 250 martyrs of healthcare workers, more than 15,500 people have perished, have lost their lives because of these barbarities of Israelis, including more than 6,000 children and more than 4,000 women. We see this restarting, recurring again now that the truce is over. Who should be blamed? Whose responsibility is it now to stop this barbarity?
Assalamu alaikum, brother. Actually, since day one, this criminal war against it was needed to have a strong diplomacy from our Muslim countries to insist Americans and Western countries to end this war from day one, because they have the power, they need to use it by insist the Americans first to end their supply weapons and bombs for the Israelis, because Israelis using that to kill Palestinian children, women, civilians. Second, they need to hide raising the voice of Palestine in all the international organizations that Palestine is occupied territory, occupied country, so they have the right to defend themselves, not the Israelis have this right. And thanks for the Chinese and Russians, again, for raising this voice, raising these principles in the international organization that the Palestinians, only the Palestinians, not the Israelis, have the right of defense. So this was need a strong diplomacy. Still, the opportunity available on the ground, we need to take it before we lose it once forever.
When you talk of diplomacy, how important has been the role of, say, Jordan, Egypt, other countries as well? And we also know that Anthony Blinken was in Israel. He also met with Mahmoud Abbas. Can the US, can the West place a more proactive role?
Brother, we can't mention one country and ignore others. Each one knows his responsibility. Each one have the power to use it, but we need to have the courage to use that. We are not facing only Israelis, we are facing the Americans themselves. So we need to face the Americans in a strong way in diplomacy. We don't speak about military options, we speak about diplomacy. We need to make the Americans understand that double standard need to be ended. You can't speak in the first days of the wars, Mr. Biden, follow the lies of America, of the Israelis, that Palestinians kill children, and ignoring in the second day that Israelis killed more than 7,000 Palestinian children, and he don't speak about right of defense for the Palestinians. He don't speak about the right of life for Palestinian people. This is unacceptable. So this gives us opportunity to use it against the Americans themselves to raise the voice of democracy, follow the needs and interests of their people who are protesting in the streets in favor of Palestine, not in favor of Israel. Only the Americans' leaders, Western countries' leaders, follow the Israelis' agenda, but their people are following the humanity agenda, which is supporting Palestinians, not the Israelis.
Online with us, we'll revert back to Maleeha Lodhi Sahiba. Ma'am, you heard what Brother Nader al-Mulk had to say. I'd like to talk about the situation as well as far as displacement of the Palestinians is concerned. If you look at the statistics, an estimated 1.8 million people in Gaza, nearly 80% of the population are internally displaced. There is no end in sight of when they will return or whether they will ever be able to return to their respective houses or their respective communities. As far as Israel is concerned, do you feel one of the game plans is to eventually occupy northern Gaza?
Well, of course, I think the Israeli design is transparent. It's clear they want to push the Palestinians of Gaza to other countries, to neighboring Arab countries. That's been their plan all along. Look, they should embark on a strategy of ethnic cleansing. What is ethnic cleansing? It is precisely what Israel is doing right now. But I do want to return to something that is extremely important. I mean, the only way we can get out of this situation, out of this tragedy, and out of this catastrophe is for the Western countries led by the United States to support a permanent ceasefire immediately. They're not doing that. In fact, they're doing the opposite. The United States is sending more weapons to Israel to carry out its policies of ethnic cleansing and, of course, bombing everything into the ground and killing Palestinians, civilian Palestinians. As a UN official just said, this is a war on Gaza, but it's a war on the children of Gaza. So I think what is needed right now is a ceasefire immediately, urgently, and it really is the responsibility of the UN Security Council to do that, because that is the world body that is responsible for the maintenance of peace and security in the world. But it seems that everybody is failing in their duty. The UN Council is failing, the international community has failed, and as I said before, sadly, I think a Muslim public do feel that their governments have failed.
Maleeha Lodhi Sahiba, when it comes to responsibility as far as putting an end to this current barbarity or going towards a permanent ceasefire or even a two-state solution is concerned. You talk of the United Nations Security Council, but on this, at the same time, there is the power of veto that certain countries within the UNSC have that prevents any such resolution from being implemented in letter and spirit. On who does the onus of responsibility now stand in this scenario that has engulfed the world, that has engulfed the United Nations Security Council, that has engulfed the Middle East region in particular? And do you feel that there is a threat of this current escalation going beyond Palestine?
Look, it's a collective responsibility. It's the collective responsibility of the international community. And we have an international organization, an international structure called the United Nations, in which the Security Council is a critical part. Because as I said before, the primary responsibility for the maintenance of international global peace and security is the Security Council. Now, as you rightly point out, the veto has been used. It's been used by the United States to prevent a humanitarian ceasefire. All the U.S. supported was a pause. A pause is neither here nor there. A pause simply means that you stop the bombing for a few hours or a few days and then it starts again, which is exactly what we are witnessing now in Gaza. So I think the international community, the world community has a collective responsibility. But clearly, the most powerful country in the world remains the United States. And as I said before, Israel will only listen to the United States. So the U.S. has far more responsibility than anyone else right now, because they can help to bring this war to an end, but they're not doing so.
All right, kindly stay online with us. Nader al-Mulk, brother Nader al-Mulk, when you look at collective responsibility that Maleeha Lodhi Sahiba has alluded to, there's also a collective responsibility to help those who are in need, for water, for food, for electricity, for basic health necessities. And those are not being adhered to as they should be, despite the fact that during the truce there were many trucks that did pass the Rafah crossing. What is the need of the day as far as helping those in need is concerned? Do we need to displace those to other countries or other parts where the hospitals are functioning? But when you look at hospitals, most of the hospitals are not functioning or have been destroyed. So what to do?
Brother, the option is very clear. No one going to be out of Gaza. Palestinian people going to live or die on Gaza land. This is the decision, last decision of the Palestinian people themselves, because they are not going to be refugees for the second time of their lives. They have this bad experience in 1948, and the international society, the international organization, first of all, United Nations, don't have the power even to make 194 resolution appear on the ground. So the Palestinians don't have that option. The only option is stay on Gaza. All the international community are invited to send emergency hospitals to be built in emergency in Gaza, in all the places of Gaza, have the power and use it to make this appear on the ground, to make the humanitarian aid delivery to Gaza, ceasefire, and this criminal genocide, revenge war against our Palestinian people, and insist the Israelis to open the political horizon to have two-state solution, following the international resolutions, international law, and stop the criminal apartheid system. They are looking to transfer Palestinian people to have their great country from Nile River to Furat River. This option going to be done only if the world keeps silence and Muslim Ummah don't use their strong diplomacy to end these things. This Israelis and Zionist plans can be ended only by end their criminal and genocide war against Palestinian people in Gaza. Or if they win in this war and start the transfer people of Gaza outside of Gaza, step 2 going to be transfer people of this one West Bank to Jordan, Damish Aqsa Masjid, and going to the fourth step, which is occupied Jordan, Lebanon, Syria, Iraq, Saudi Arabia, part of Turkey, to build their great Israel from Nile to river to Furat River. So we have the opportunity to end this crazy plans in Gaza. If we take this opportunity, it's going to be succeed as a humanity. If we didn't take that opportunity, that means all the doors of heaven, all the doors of hell actually going to be open, and we're going to have make the grave of humanity deeper and deeper to be buried once forever, and wild, crazy leaders going to lead the war.
Ma'am, this is my last question to you. We've taken a lot of your time, but I'd like to understand the role of the Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu. He was politically weak. Since the 7th of October, this whole war between Israel and Palestine has now strengthened him to such an extent that his corruption trial that was set to resume today, where he's been exempted from that, but could be called to testify in a few months. Do you feel Netanyahu is using this war as a political tool for his own political success or continuity? And if so, can that be detrimental or beneficial to him in the long run?
Well, to start with, I think, yes, Netanyahu has certainly been using this war to prop up his waning political position. But I don't think the war has strengthened his position at all. In fact, quite the contrary. What has happened is initially when the attack by Hamas took place, there were big questions in Israel and around the world, in fact, about Israel's intelligence failure, because they didn't know this was coming. And the security failure was laid firmly and squarely at Netanyahu's door. And then, of course, the whole hostage crisis and the fact that the relatives of the hostages, many of them began to say, bring an end to this war and bring these hostages home. The longer you continue with this war, the greater the risk to these Israeli hostages. So I don't think Netanyahu has really gained. In fact, even the U.S. Defense Secretary, who has been completely, unqualifiedly supportive of Israel, said recently that Israel may be heading towards a strategic defeat. So if this is a strategic defeat, which I believe myself, it will take place, that will do nothing for Netanyahu. I think Netanyahu is going to be toast very soon. He is not going to be able to politically survive this.
All right, let's hope for that. With that, thank you very much, Maleeha Lodhi Sahiba, to have joined us for this very important segment on the Israel-Palestine war. Finally, Brother Nader Alturk, I'd like to understand. Central Gaza is now cut off from the south. Israeli attacks by air, land, even sea are ongoing. A lot of people can hear the drones, the jets over their heads. And there seems to be no peace in sight. In all of this situation, what needs to be done? Do you even feel that a ceasefire or a two-state solution can be a distant possibility?
Ceasefire is a good step, but not enough. We need to have political horizon to be open, that there is going to be peaceful solution for Palestinian problem by establishing a Palestinian independent state with Jerusalem as its capital, facilitate the right of return of Palestinian people with their own properties, which was transferred from it by force in 1948. This is going to be the option. Other option is going to be temporarily solution, but not final and comprehensive solution. Going back for your question to your other honorable guest, Netanyahu actually is a very selfish leader. He is looking for his own survival, not for Palestinians, even not for the Israeli people survive. He only looking to stay in his in power, in his position as a prime minister of Israelis for a longer time, because he knows that in the day he going out of the position, he going to be in the jail as a corrupted person and a corrupted leader. And he is surrounded by some leaders are corrupted like him. So they knows their failure, not the only thing on this 7th of October, but they are corrupted and they're going to facing the Israeli court and this day going to be soon, inshallah, that in the end of this war, this leader is going to be changed and we will see a new leader in Israel, but actually we're going to change a criminal leader with others, but once he is using diplomacy to cover his criminal actions, and the other have the courage to face it like the Israelis at Ben Ghafir.
Thank you very much, Brother Nader Alturk, Palestinian Chargé d'Affaires, to have joined us, to have talked to us about the latest as far as this war between Israel and Palestine is concerned. This is a war that has been going on almost since the last 60 days. There was a humanitarian truce, but now that that truce has ended, Israel has resorted to the same barbarities that it was doing before the truce began. What needs to be done is a collective action by all the important leaders across the world, important countries across the world, to stop this genocide, to stop these barbarities, and to move towards not only a long-term ceasefire, but also a two-state solution, or any solution that could be beneficial for the people of Palestine. Let's come to the last three stories very quickly. The first concerns a school in Azad, Jammu and Kashmir, ladies and gentlemen, that has won laurels at COP28 for sustainable farming. Now, the Kashmir Orphan Relief Trust Educational and Residential Complex won this award in the Global High School South Asia category. The school that has been built in Mirpur with the support of overseas Pakistanis after a devastating earthquake of 2005 provides education and accommodation to around 1,600 orphaned children. The school is working on projects for organic farming and water conservation to provide nutritious food to students and community members. As a non-profit organization, this education institution is dedicated to supporting and providing orphan children with excellent education, boarding facilities, food, clothing and medical care. And of course, now it has gotten the international laurels at COP28 as well. Let's come to the economy now, where the PSX has risen above 62,000. Never we would have thought that a couple of months back that the PSX could increase to this level. It is a bullish run from its preceding sessions. The benchmark index has crossed 62,000 milestone on Monday, and the KSE 100 index struck 62,401.94 at 9:40 a.m., around 710.69 points, or 1.15% from the previous close of 61,691.25 points. It was also hovering near the 63,000 mark intraday. And the State Bank of Pakistan forex reserves have increased by $77 million to now $7.2 billion. Only good news on the economic front, and that also because of the measures taken by the caretaker government. Finally, let's come to end on a slightly sad note, and we'll go take you to Indonesia, where 11 climbers are dead, around 12 are missing after the eruption of Indonesia's Mount Merapi. Authorities say 75 people were in the area when the West Sumatra volcano erupted on a Sunday. There are 26 people who have not been evacuated. They have found 14 of them, 3 were found alive, 11 were found dead. This is an unfortunate incident that can happen at such locations, and our hearts go with all those who have lost their loved ones because of this incident. And of course, we hope that the rest of the people who are either missing will be recovered, and most of them, if not all of them, will be found to be alive. We hope and we pray for all those who have yet to be found. With that, we come to an end of today's newsroom. We'll see you inshallah tomorrow with new story segments that pertain to us, you and Pakistan. Stay safe. Allah Hafiz.